The Sacramento Kings are 1-0 in the Jae Crowder era. He led the team in plus minus at plus 16, shot 50% from the 3-point line, 60% from the field. The Kings, with Jae Crowder, there's no ceiling for this team. They just picked him up off the street, threw him straight into the starting lineup, and here we are winning a game. This was kind of the battle of two teams trying to not be the saddest team in the West right now. And the Kings came out on top, baby. Let's go. We're only the second saddest team in the West for now. I had to throw on the Malik Monk jersey after that game. I didn't have it on during the game, but man, he was incredible, so I had to throw it on. And it was not pretty by any means. The second half, the Kings had me contemplating the meaning of life at times, but they won. And that's what matters, especially when you're on a losing streak. It's not necessarily going to be, perfect right away. It's just like you got to get going in the right direction. And so this wasn't necessarily the most encouraging game of all time, but they won the game. There have been too many games early in this season where it was an encouraging game, but they lost. So we will take one where maybe it wasn't, the prettiest game, but you win the game in the end. And this game just shared so many similarities with the game that they just played against OKC. For one, just having a good first half, everything seeming to go well in the first half. The only difference was Minnesota was much worse than Oklahoma City, so instead of the Kings just being right in the game, they had a big lead. Then another similarity, the third quarter collapse, and also horrible officiating in the third quarter. And then the difference was, the difference really was the level of opponent. If this is OKC, we're not winning this game, but it's Minnesota, who hasn't been playing very well. And with Minnesota did not play a good game, but the Kings, in their absolute collapse of an entire third quarter, plus even some of the start of the fourth quarter, they were able to just stay attached enough so they gave themselves a chance late in this game. And thankfully, they took that chance. The first half from the Kings was pretty much exactly how you want to see the Kings play. The way that they were able to just get into the paint at will. They just abused Rudy Gobert inside. It was so beautiful. The aggression out of Domantas Sabonis. Actually, I thought the very, very start of this game, the Kings weren't great. And I've criticized this a lot, like their opening plays, a lot of the way they play at the very, very start of games offensively. It's like no one wants to get downhill. Everyone's kind of just going through the motions. No one's moving with any real meaning. And I thought it was kind of the same again. And the only guy who was really looking to attack was Sabonis, and he had to do a lot of the attacking just one-on-one with Gobert. And luckily, he is pretty good whenever he matches up against Gobert. So it worked out enough. He had a great game, scoring 27 points, really just looking for a shot, especially in the first half. But he didn't have much help outside of that early on. And then the guy that came in and actually helped him attack the rim was Isaac Jones. Obviously, with Trey Lyles being out 3 to 4 weeks or being reevaluated in that time, with DeMar DeRozan being out for this game, and Isaac Jones having performed well when he has played in the past, he got a big opportunity here and he absolutely took it. He was so good in the first half of this game, taking Rudy Gobert off the dribble. And what was really cool was seeing what we've seen in Stockton and what we've seen in garbage times of games where he's able to finish over guys, finish in the post, attack off the dribble, and then have really good touch around the rim. We were able to see that with him going up against one of the elite defensive players in the game. And Rudy Gobert just didn't bother him, and he was able to finish over him. And then I thought the Kings' kind of adjustment from their early offense, where it was only Sabonis and then Isaac Jones coming in and attacking the rim, the adjustment kind of revolved around Malik Monk. Because when Malik's in the game, it's a lot more pick and roll. Malik's really good at getting downhill and being patient and playmaking out of that pick and roll. And the Kings just started running more pick and roll as a whole. And Fox was running some. And the key was Malik Monk. And that's what allowed the Kings offense to get inside. And they were just finding Sabonis open on the roll time after time. And whether he finished inside or he just would miss and then get his own rebound, or someone else would get the rebound, the Kings were really good offensive rebounding. And then really from there, that aggression in the paint, dominating in the paint, then opened up the 3-point shot, because they didn't take many 3-point shots early. And that 3-point shot then opened up. You had Keon hitting 2 threes in the second one, him just stepping into it with so much confidence, even with a defender pretty close. And the Kings went on to score 69 points in that first half. Offensively, it was just beautiful. And it felt like much more of Kings teams of the past, of 2 years ago. Maybe not necessarily of 2 years ago, but just in terms of how much they were scoring, because they weren't scoring in the same way as they were 2 years ago. Maybe a little more like last season when they were playing well offensively and just getting actual good bench production. Malik Monk being the key to that, but then Isaac Jones coming in and giving you 8 points as well. Defensively, it wasn't good in the first quarter. They let Anthony Edwards get way too many open looks. When Monk and Herter were both out there at the same time, it was rough defensively. But also you could just take away Monk and just say when Herter's out there, it looks rough defensively. And I just don't think the Kings did a good job of being on the same page and knowing how they were going to play defensively and what they were going to switch and who's picking up who in transition. There were a few times where it's just like Jae Crowder looking a bit confused, which is understandable. Obviously, he just got here. Like, you don't expect him to know what's going on all the time. But the second quarter, I thought, is much improved defensively, getting out to shooters, running them off the line, and then rotating from there. Like early in that second quarter, Keegan kind of stopped short on a contest on Nickeil Alexander-Walker, and Walker just rose up over him and drained a three. And that was kind of a perfect representation of how the Kings' three-point defense has been. But from that point on, they did a much better job defending the three-point line, and they took advantage of non-Anthony Edwards lineups, which obviously is key. Thought Jae Crowder did a solid job on Julius Randle. Randle was hitting his fadeaways in the mid-range, which are tough to defend. Luckily, he wasn't hitting his threes this game. You know, there's not much you can do about Randle mid-rangers. You just have to try to keep him as far away from the rim as possible. And Jae Crowder was doing a solid job of that. And then I also loved Isaac Jones' defense and his rebounding especially. And while Keegan Murray at times in this game was a little frustrating offensively, both just 0 for 4 from 3. So it's hard not to be frustrated when he hasn't hit a 3 all season. And then times where he has like Mike Conley on him and he's not being aggressive offensively. But there was a point in that second quarter, Kings got up 12, Wolves got a little momentum, right? They get it within 8, they're in transition. What does Keegan do? He stands in, he takes a big charge, and he did it right in the open court. He took 2 charges this game, and those are big momentum plays. When the Wolves are on a little bit of a run here, they're in the open court, right? It should be an easy 2, and he's able to prevent that. That's a massive play from Keegan. And then another thing that was nice was Fox got both Jaden McDaniels and Nickeil Alexander-Walker into foul trouble. Then the third quarter, very much like the game against OKC, it just slowed down. So many foul calls, felt like the game totally shifted in how it was being called. And look, all I'm going to say, 15 free throws for the Kings, 27 for the Wolves, when the Kings were the ones attacking the rim time after time. Kind of tells you all you need to know about how the officiating was going. Sabonis ended up picking up 5 fouls pretty like midway to late through that third quarter. And quite a few of them were not the best calls for sure. And then from there, the Kings just completely fell apart. And this is a problem the Kings have. Yes, the officiating was not good, but that's going to happen. It's the NBA. We all know this. We all know this about the officiating. It's not always going to be great. It's going to go against you for stretches. The Kings have not shown the ability to play through that at all. They crumble. And again, I said this before, there's this whole like Fox gets mad when the officiating goes against him. You don't want to get Fox mad. If I were the other team, I want to get Fox mad because guess what he's going to do? He's going to drive in. He's just going to flail his arms up because he's frustrated with the officiating, and he's going to try to draw a foul instead of actually trying to score. So, like, I thought Fox had a pretty solid first half, getting into the paint and scoring. Not a whole lot was needed for him, but he was very efficient. Then that third quarter came. He wasn't knocking down his jumper. That's just unfortunate. But then it was him. It was the rest of the team. Like, it's not just on him. It's on the team as a whole. But I think it starts with him not being able to play through when you're getting frustrated by the officiating. It's happened in 2 straight games. They have to find a way to compose themselves because the offense was, some of it is just Sabonis being out because he's in foul trouble. But you can't score 12 points in a third quarter. Like, you had a massive, not a massive lead, but like a 12-point lead going into the second half, and you end up getting outscored by 17 in that third quarter. If Sabonis doesn't get in that foul trouble, does that happen? Probably not. But the team was just so reliant on Sabonis setting screens in that pick and roll, rolling to the rim. And when he went out, it was just Monk gets the ball. He takes the screen from Len, goes nowhere. He passes it over to Fox. It kind of goes nowhere. It just is not good offense at all. And this is not even including what Kevin Huerter did in that third quarter, because that was something else. But the offense just completely stagnates when Sabonis is off the floor, and that's kind of why you went and got DeMar DeRozan for moments like this. But obviously he's out. You still have Fox. You still have Monk. You have to find ways to be better. This is when you would have Trey Lyles out there and you have a small ball unit, and the offense has been better at those times. But Alex Len wasn't generating too much, although there were times where Alex Len would kind of get the ball in the middle, the Kings would shift the defense, and then they were just missing open threes. There was definitely that. The Kings not being able to hit threes at all did not help. And this was the entire third quarter without Sabonis plus the start of the fourth. They just had no ability to be able to get into the paint in those non-Sabonis minutes. Some of it is, Alex Len being very limited, and then they went super small. And so again, usually in those super small lineups, then you have Trey Lyles and you're completely spaced out, but no Trey Lyles, obviously. And then you have Huerter, who was turning the ball over, just awful turnovers, not shooting confidently. He didn't even want to go to the corner when he was wide open. He didn't secure a rebound. Then he lost the jump ball. He was supposed to come out, but he had to take the jump ball. So in that time, he lost the jump ball, then turned it over again. It felt like he was playing for the other team. And somehow he left the court during that stretch with the highest plus minus on the entire team. So that tells you all you need to know about plus minus. The dude just, I don't know. I don't know what happened to him. It's sad. Can't hit a 3 now. And when he's hitting his threes, I think he generates so much confidence for every other part of his game. But when he's not hitting threes, then that's all he's thinking about, and then he sucks in every other part of the game. That's what it feels like to me. He was unplayable. He was so unplayable that the Kings went incredibly small to start the fourth quarter with like Keegan or Crowder at the 5, and they didn't even have Huerter out there. They had McLaughlin, who hadn't played all game. And then they went to Doug McDermott for a minute in the fourth quarter. That was crazy. Like, that was insane when they put McDermott in. Because I get, you only played him for a minute. I'm so glad they pulled the plug after only a minute. Because even in a minute, having one guy out there can do a lot of damage. All right, I've seen it. We saw it with Kevin Huerter in the third quarter. That was a crazy call to put Doug McDermott out there. He missed a 3. He fouled, it could have been worse, but I'm glad that they decided, that's probably not a good idea very early on. I didn't even talk about how the Wolves won that challenge at the end of the third quarter. Oh my God. Fox got hit on the arm, even on that play where somehow the Wolves still win the challenge. But that's the worst, when you feel like you're getting hard done by the officiating, only for them to finally call a foul on the one play that's not even a foul, and then they challenge it and win. Like, that hurts. But then Fox got the steal in the bucket. I mean, that's a big momentum play from Fox there. That's big. But that super small lineup at the start of the fourth, they still couldn't hit a shot. And the Kings didn't hit a three until like midway through the fourth quarter. In the second half, they started like 0 for, I don't know what the number was, 13, something like that. Then eventually Fox got that and one, finally got a mid-ranger to go. Then there was just a great defensive possession that led to that Keegan Murray run out and layup that probably should have been an and one. But then what was wild was they put Sabonis back in at like the 10-minute mark of the fourth quarter. The guy with 5 fouls. They put him in. That's how bad things were going. That the coaching staff was like, we need Sabonis now. And to his credit, he played the entire 10 minutes. I'm pretty sure he never came out. And he did it without fouling. And that was huge. But Sabonis was actually the one to hit the first 3 of the second half. And it feels like it's been that way. Every time the Kings are cold, it's always Sabonis to be the one to hit it. And it's him being the second most consistent shooter on this team outside of Keon Ellis is crazy. And then thankfully, Sabonis started it off and then with, I think, 5 straight. Then Monk scored 8 straight. And you could see he just started heating up. Got to the rim, hit a 3, hit a tough 3, hit a couple of tough 3s, I think. Then you had Fox hitting a 3 off of an offensive rebound. Then he hits a tough off the dribble 3 when the Kings offense was going nowhere. It was just Monk and Fox bringing us home in that last stretch, and the defense also being very good as well. Also, a very big part is the Kings rebounding. Being able to come up with offensive rebounds, but more importantly, not letting Minnesota get any offensive rebounds. And also, I want to say thank you, Anthony Edwards, for taking 2 straight awful 3-point attempts when you were up 10. That's what really helped us get back in the game. I was so happy when he took those, because that was the only way it felt like we were getting back in the game, because the Timberwolves, our defense was not great up to that point in the second half, and they were getting into the paint. Anthony Edwards felt like he was unstoppable getting downhill, and so he just decided to settle for these like horrible sidestep 3s. So I was very thankful that he stopped attacking so much. And Monk and Fox being the clutch bros that we've seen at times. And I will say that the offense in that fourth quarter, it didn't exactly give me a lot of faith. The Kings scored 34 points. It was not the prettiest 34 points. It was like 3 tough 3s down the stretch when all the Kings needed to do was practically hold the ball for a shot clock violation. Not exactly, but they needed to hold the ball for close to 24 seconds. They turned it over twice and almost turned it over a third time to end this game. Their last 3 offensive possessions, 2 of them were turnovers, 1 was an almost turnover. And that's what we saw last season. So that's not encouraging. But what was different was it was the defense that held up. Now, there were definitely some misses from Minnesota around the rim. And finally, they went back to allowing physical play. So I don't know. There might have been some fouls that the refs missed around the rim. And I'm happy about that, because I think Keegan got a block or 2. And there were just a bunch of contests around the rim where it was very physical and the refs let them play. But again, the Kings coming up with rebounds. Fox had a couple big rebounds. Monk had some big rebounds. Fox had 8 rebounds in this game. Monk had 8 as well. That's massive from your guards. And out of those 16 combined, 15 were defensive. And then we had a nice Jae Crowder 3 just to end it off. And I love Jae Crowder because even if he doesn't play well, which I do think he played well in this game, even if he doesn't play well, he's gonna talk some smack. He's gonna get into it with some guys, and I like that. He's obviously known a little bit for doing that, and he was talking to Julius Randle all game, and he was talking to fans. It's like, he just got here, but I already love him. Is he gonna turn the season around? Yeah, probably not single-handedly for sure, but he came in. He could actually hit 3s. I mean, it was great. 2 for 4 from 3. Very small sample size. But him doing that, him just being a wing that could just stand there and take hits from Julius Randle instead of Keegan being the one to do that, No, it didn't open up Keegan's offensive game in this one, but hopefully going forward, it allows Keegan Murray to at times focus more on his offensive game, possibly. So, pretty much, it was a fun first half. Then we don't talk about it for a quarter and a half, and then a great end to the fourth quarter. But getting into some of the individual performances, like I said, Jae Crowder, 27 minutes, and being thrown into the starting lineup on his debut. At first, you're like, "Whoa, he's in the starting lineup," and then you look at who else we have available, and you're like, "Yeah, no, that's about right." I mean, who else was going to start? You're going to start Doug McDermott, put him on Julius Randle. You could start Isaac Jones, but yeah, I mean, it makes sense that they started Jae Crowder, and I thought he was good. Had a couple of really bad turnovers where he just threw it away, but hopefully that's just kind of shaking the rust off a little bit. I mean, Minnesota, when we're talking about just throwing the ball away, the first half was crazy, and maybe the third quarter as well, some of it. But yeah, the first half just throwing the ball away. Rob Dillingham came in and had one of the crazier, just throwing it straight to nobody, even though he was looking at them for so long. They were so sloppy. I mean, the Kings had 16 turnovers, but they weren't just throwing it to no one. Like they were still bad plays on the turnovers, but Minnesota's turnovers were just the ones where you're just scratching your head, like, what are you guys doing? Domantas Sabonis had 27 points, 12 rebounds, 5 assists, 3 turnovers. At least one of those was an offensive foul. And then I don't know if that other offensive foul, they would have given him a turnover. I'm not really sure. It feels like a good portion of his turnovers are offensive fouls or illegal screens or things like that. Like there were some weak calls. Not too mad at him being in foul trouble in this one. And I just loved how aggressive he was. And he was carrying the Kings offense for a long time. And we saw what happened when he went out in that third quarter. And that's how important he is, especially when you don't have a guy like DeMar DeRozan that can go get his own bucket. Because Fox he wasn't hitting from the mid range. He was good when he was getting inside. He also hit 3 out of 8 threes. So he was solid from deep. He was solid inside, but he could not get the mid-rangers or the floaters to go. But 26 points, 8 assists, 8 rebounds. Still solid. 5 turnovers isn't great. We needed more from him in that third quarter. We needed him to be able to keep his composure a little better under the circumstances of some questionable calls. But he did make up for it in the fourth quarter. Keegan, 4 for 11 from the field, 0 for 4 from 3. He had 8 points. I loved his takes to the rim. He had at least one dunk, but he had a bunch of strong takes to the rim. So I love that. What I don't love is when he's backing it out onto the perimeter again, when he has big mismatches like against Mike Conley. Don't like that. But on the defensive end, him taking 2 charges, guarding Anthony Edwards late in this game. And that's the thing, like with Keon Ellis in the starting lineup and Jae Crowder in the starting lineup, it takes defensive pressure off Keegan Murray. But then if you slot Malik Monk into the closing lineup, then that puts more pressure on Keegan. But I feel like that's okay, because it's better to have Keegan like having less pressure and being able to do more offensively in the first 3 quarters. And then once it's fourth quarter, then it's Fox and Monk. Like it's those times. And DeMar, obviously, when he's healthy. And Keegan can be more of a catch and shoot guy. But I want to see more offensively from him in the first, few quarters rather than the fourth quarter. And then Keon, 2 for 5 from 3 at 8 points. Had some solid moments guarding Ant. Others not so much, like especially some screen navigation moments. But overall, a solid game. And just the one play that sticks in my mind is him rising up right over a defender for his second 3 of the game. It's just, that was a beautiful play, and that's what we need more of from him, because this team needs shooting. And when this team could not hit a shot in the second half, I mean, he was part of that. He was taking shots and missing them as well. It really is crazy how often this team just no one can hit a shot. And I know people on the outside who maybe aren't paying attention will be like, DeMar DeRozan coming in hurts the spacing, whatever. Like, DeMar didn't play in this game. He didn't make them shoot 0 for 13. Like, that's really not what's happening. They're getting good looks. And then it's crazy how often all of them just forget how to shoot at the same time. How often they turn into the Rockets in the second half against the Warriors, you know. But let's keep going. To the bench, Malik Monk. Almost had a triple-double. He was out here with 27 points, 8 rebounds, 9 assists, and 11 for 16 from the field. 3 for 5 from 3. And his pick and roll game with Sabonis is so important because it breaks up the Kings' usual flow offensively, because teams can hone in on the Kings' usual flow when they're just so centered around the perimeter. There are times where the Kings just cannot break that perimeter pressure, and that's what Malik Monk really provides. It's that switch up offensively that was so important to the first half, and the reason the Kings got 69 points. And then, obviously, him being able to close the game like he did. Just wish him and Fox just be more careful with the ball at the end of games. That's the only thing. Isaac Jones, 21 minutes. It's a lot of minutes for a two-way rookie, but he's looking great. He had a oop where it did not seem like he should have been able to dunk it, but he just has insane hops, insane athleticism. His rebounding has been great. His defensive instincts have been great, and his touch around the rim have been great. And he's earning himself a lot more minutes, and he's doing it at a position of need for the Kings, so he will get those minutes. Herter, 14 minutes, 1 for 6 from the field, 1 for 5 from 3. 3 turnovers. Yeah, 3 points. I mean, he's becoming unplayable at this point. What do you do with, 17 million in salary, just sitting on the bench, being unplayable? Like, that is rough. And it's going to make, when the Kings, try to trade him because he's the expendable salary, it's like you're going to have to include quite a bit of value alongside it if you really want to get anything. It's not like he has a super long contract. It's this year, next year. But still, if someone's going to take on that deal, they're going to need value. And then you had 6 minutes from Alex Len. He didn't look great. He didn't look bad. Like, he made some solid plays when he would get the ball, when Minnesota was getting the ball out of the guard's hands in the pick and roll. He was receiving the ball near the free throw line, and he made some good decisions, didn't turn the ball over. But the Kings offense just didn't look very good with him out there. And if they hit some threes, then maybe that would be a different story. But you can never really rely on the three-point ball with this team. So you have to be able to get inside, and they weren't able to do that when he was on the court. And then you have 2 minutes from J Mac, where he just missed 2 threes. And then McDermott, 1 minute, he missed a 3. Like I said, wasn't the prettiest, but it was a win the Kings needed to get, and now they continue on this road trip to Portland. Kings, a winning record on the road, because why not? I just don't get this team. But it's Portland, who has been competitive, and then you have San Antonio and Houston at home, both teams that are very hot right now. Even with the Blazers being competitive in some games, like, this is still just a game that the Kings need to win because of, obviously, where the Kings are at right now. In the earlier win this season against the Trailblazers, they didn't have Shaedon Sharpe. That was a huge miss for them. He is incredible when he's healthy. But DeMar DeRozan was key in that earlier win against the Trailblazers, keeping us in it in a first half where the game was stuck in mud and we couldn't hit outside shots. Sound familiar? But it was DeMar getting the free throw line, keeping us in it. Obviously, I don't know if he's going to play, but this is a Blazers team that constantly gives the Kings problems. But if the Kings can attack with the same amount of determination to, like, always get to the rim in this game, I think they'll be fine. I mean, it might result in some turnovers to a Blazers team with guys like Toumani Camara and Deni Avdija, along with some other guys with length that seem to turn us over quite a bit when we play them. But they just got to be relentless attacking the paint because they can't rely on their three-point shot, obviously. And then also, another note, maybe the Kings shouldn't feel so bad about losing to Brooklyn, because Brooklyn now I mean, they still should probably feel bad. But Brooklyn beat the Warriors. They're now looking like they're going to beat the Suns in Phoenix, and they beat the Warriors in San Francisco. So maybe not so bad of a loss. Anyways, that is it for this episode of the Roll Report. As always, shout out to the members of this channel, No Rain and Joe Mama. And I will see you guys in the next one. Peace.